My name is Patricia, and I'm 52 years old. For 18 years, I raised my son Tyler as a single mother working night shifts as a nurse to make ends meet. I sacrificed everything for that boy. Tonight, I was preparing his favorite dinner, hoping for a warm family evening after months of barely hearing from him. The tenderloin was searing perfectly. The mashed potatoes were creamy just how he liked them, and I had even baked his favorite chocolate cake from scratch. But as I watched him walk through my front door in his expensive suit, looking around my modest home with what seemed like judgment in his eyes, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the October weather. Before I share what happened that night that changed everything between us, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel because this story will make you think twice about the true meaning of respect and unconditional love. Now let me take you back to that kitchen where my world was about to shatter. I've been a registered nurse at Denver General Hospital for 23 years. After my divorce from Marcus 15 years ago when Tyler was just 10, I made the difficult decision to work the overnight shift, 12 hours from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., caring for patients while my son slept safely at home. It wasn't ideal, but it meant I could be there when he woke up for school help with homework in the afternoons and attend every soccer game and parent-teacher conference. Our little two-bedroom house in the suburbs isn't much to look at. The carpet shows its age, the kitchen appliances are from the early 2000s, and the living room furniture has seen better days. But every piece tells a story of sacrifice. When Tyler was 16 and needed a laptop for school, I sold my car and took the bus to work for 6 months. When he wanted to join the travel soccer team, I picked up weekend shifts baking pastries for the local coffee shop. The college fund I started when he was born grew slowly but steadily, and when it wasn't enough, I took out a second mortgage on the house. Tyler graduated from the University of Colorado with a business degree last year. I was so proud watching him walk across that stage, knowing every late-night shift, every skipped meal, every no I had to say to myself had led to that moment. He landed a job with a marketing firm in downtown Denver, and from what he told me, he was doing well. He had moved in with his girlfriend Jessica into a sleek apartment in the trendy part of town. Our conversations had become shorter and less frequent over the past year. "I'm really busy with work, Mom," he would say when I called. "Can we catch up later?" Later never seemed to come. The last time I saw him was 3 months ago, a quick coffee meeting where he seemed distracted, constantly checking his phone. I missed my boy, missed the closeness we once shared, but I told myself this was normal. He was building his life, becoming independent. Isn't that what every mother wants? When he called last Tuesday to ask if he could come for dinner on Saturday, my heart soared. "I'd love that," I said probably too eagerly. "I'll make your favorite." His response was brief, almost dismissive. "Sure, Mom. See you around 7. But I didn't care about his tone. My son was coming home. I requested Saturday off from the hospital, something I rarely did. By Thursday, I had planned the entire menu. Beef, tenderloin with herb butter, the same cut we used to splurge on for special occasions when he was younger. Garlic mashed potatoes made with real cream and butter, not the box mix I usually relied on after exhausting shifts. Fresh Caesar salad with homemade croutons and green beans almondine because he always said vegetables were okay if they had nuts on them. Friday after work, I stopped at the grocery store and spent more than I typically did in 2 weeks. The tenderloin alone was $68, but I didn't hesitate. I bought fresh herbs, imported Parmesan cheese, and the good chocolate for his cake. At home, I spent hours cleaning, dusting furniture that rarely saw visitors, scrubbing the bathroom until it gleamed and vacuuming every corner of the house. Saturday morning, I woke up early despite having worked until 7 a.m. I was too excited to sleep. I started the chocolate cake first, using my mother's recipe that required 3 different types of chocolate and real vanilla extract. The house filled with the warm, rich aroma that used to bring Tyler running to the kitchen as a child, begging to lick the spoon. I set the dining room table with the good china wedding gifts I had kept through the divorce. The white plates with tiny blue flowers seemed too fancy for our usual routine, but this felt like a celebration. I found candles in the back of a drawer, probably left over from some long-forgotten romantic dinner with Marcus. I polished the silverware until it caught the light and folded the cloth napkins I only used for holidays. As 6 o'clock approached, I started the potatoes and seasoned the tenderloin. I changed into a nice blouse I rarely wore, applied a little makeup, and even put on the pearl earrings Tyler had given me for Mother's Day years ago with money I had given him to buy the gift. I wanted everything to be perfect. I wanted to show him that our home, our life together, still mattered. At 6:30, I lit the candles and waited. 7 o'clock came and went, 7:15, 7:30. Finally, at 7:45, I heard a car door slam outside. Through the window, I saw Tyler stepping out of a black BMW I had never seen before. He was wearing a charcoal gray suit that looked expensive, his hair perfectly styled. He looked successful, confident every inch the professional I had worked so hard to help him become. But when he walked through the door, something felt different. His hug was brief, almost obligatory. He glanced around the living room with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Smells good," he said, but his voice lacked the warmth I remembered. "Sorry I'm late, traffic was crazy." He didn't apologize for not calling, didn't explain the new car, didn't ask how I was doing. He simply stood there checking his phone as if he were already planning his escape. "Come sit down," I said, gesturing toward the dining room. "Everything's ready." Tyler followed me, his expensive shoes clicking on the hardwood floor I had mopped twice that morning. He pulled out his chair and sat down, immediately reaching for his phone again. "This looks nice," he said, glancing at the table setting, but there was something in his tone, a hint of surprise that felt almost condescending, like he had forgotten I knew how to make an effort. I served the tenderloin perfectly, medium rare the way he used to prefer it, and watched his face for the reaction I was hoping for. Instead, he cut a small piece and chewed thoughtfully, his expression neutral. "So tell me about work," I said, settling into my own chair. "How's the new position going?" This was safe territory, I thought. He had always loved talking about his ambitions, his plans for success. "It's going really well," Tyler said, his posture straightening. "I just got promoted to senior account coordinator. The salary bump was substantial. I'm handling some major clients now, companies you've probably heard of." He named a few corporations, watching my face as if expecting me to be impressed. I was, of course. My son was succeeding in ways I had only dreamed of at his age, but as he continued talking, something shifted in his tone. He began describing his office, the view from the 32nd floor, the expensive restaurants where he took clients for lunch. "It's a completely different world from what I grew up with," he said, looking around our modest dining room. "My colleagues, they all come from money. Their parents are doctors, lawyers, business owners. They understand success in a way that—" He trailed off, but his meaning was clear. "Well, you're there now," I said gently. "You've worked hard to build that life." I meant it as encouragement, but Tyler seemed to interpret it differently. "I have," he said, his voice taking on an edge, "but it hasn't been easy. Do you know how embarrassing it was to show up at company events in a used Honda while everyone else drove luxury cars? How awkward it was when colleagues asked about my background and I had to explain that my mom was a nurse and we lived in a tiny house in the suburbs. The words hit me like ice water. I set down my fork, trying to process what I was hearing. "Tyler, there's nothing wrong with being a nurse. There's nothing wrong with our house." "No, of course not," he said quickly, but his tone suggested otherwise. "I just mean that in my professional circle, image matters, perception matters. And lately, I've been thinking about Dad a lot." My stomach dropped. Marcus. He rarely brought up his father anymore, and when he did, it was usually with disappointment or anger about the abandonment. "What about him?" "I had lunch with him last week," Tyler said casually, as if this wasn't earth-shattering news. "He invited me to see his new house in Cherry Hills Village. Mom, you should see this place. It's incredible. Swimming pool, home theater, wine cellar. Charlotte has amazing taste in decorating. They just got back from Aspen, and next month they're going to Cabo." Each word felt like a small knife. I knew Marcus had done well for himself after our divorce. His construction company had grown substantially, especially after he married Charlotte, whose father owned a major development firm. But hearing Tyler describe their lifestyle with such obvious admiration made my chest tighten. "That's nice," I managed to say. "I'm glad he's doing well." "He really is," Tyler continued, seemingly oblivious to my discomfort. "And Charlotte is amazing. She's so sophisticated, so put together. She actually went to business school and she helps Dad with the company now. They make such a power couple. Dad was telling me about their investment portfolio, their plans to buy a vacation home in Vail. I nodded and smiled, but inside I was drowning. This was supposed to be our special dinner, our time to reconnect. Instead, Tyler was using it to tell me how much better his father's life was than ours. As Tyler continued describing Marcus and Charlotte's wonderful life, his tone grew more animated and his comments more pointed. "You know what I realized," he said, cutting another piece of tenderloin. "Dad and Charlotte understand ambition. They understand what it takes to really succeed in today's world." "What do you mean by that?" I asked quietly, though I wasn't sure I wanted to hear the answer. Tyler leaned back in his chair, and for the first time all evening he really looked at me. But it wasn't the loving gaze of a son. It was the appraising look of someone sizing up a disappointing investment. "Mom, I need to be honest with you about something. I'm embarrassed to bring friends here. I'm embarrassed to tell my colleagues about our family situation. When people at work talk about their parents, they mention successful careers, nice homes, impressive accomplishments. What am I supposed to say that my mom is a nurse who lives in a house that hasn't been updated since the 1990s? The words hung in the air like poison. I felt my hands begin to tremble, but I kept them folded in my lap. "Tyler, everything I've done, every choice I've made has been for you." "I know that," he said impatiently, "but that's exactly the problem. You've never done anything for yourself. You've never tried to improve your situation to grow to become more than just a single mom scraping by. Do you know what Dad told me? He said he tried to encourage you to go back to school, to pursue nursing management, to think bigger. But you always had an excuse. You were always too comfortable with mediocrity." My vision blurred slightly, but I refused to let tears fall. "I worked nights so I could be home with you during the day. I took extra shifts to pay for your soccer camps and your college applications. I mortgaged this house to help pay your tuition." "And I appreciate that," Tyler said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "But look at Charlotte. She managed to build a career and maintain a beautiful home and support Dad's business growth all at the same time. She didn't just survive, she thrived. She made herself into the kind of woman a successful man would want to be with." Each word was a dagger, but Tyler wasn't finished. He was just getting started. "I finally understand why Dad left," he continued, his voice growing colder. "Who wants to come home to someone with no ambition, someone who's content to just work the same job year after year, living in the same small house, never growing, never evolving?" Charlotte pushes Dad to be better. She challenges him. She brings something to the relationship besides just basic caretaking. I set down my water glass because my hands were shaking too badly to hold it steady. This was my son, my baby, the child I had rocked through fevers and nightmares, the boy I had cheered for at every game and graduation. And he was talking to me like I was a stranger he pitied. "Mom, you need to understand something," Tyler said, leaning forward with the intensity of someone delivering an important business presentation. "In my world, in the real world, image matters. Success matters. And frankly, I can't keep pretending that my background is something I'm proud of. Look at this place." He gestured around our dining room dismissively. "Look at your life. You're 52 years old, and what do you have to show for it? A mortgage on a tiny house and a job that anyone can do." "Anyone can do," I repeated softly. "You know what I mean. It's not like you're a doctor or a lawyer or a business owner. You follow orders and change bandages. And that's fine, I guess, but don't expect me to pretend it's impressive when I'm trying to build relationships with people who actually matter." The silence that followed was deafening. I stared at Tyler, searching his face for some sign of the loving boy I had raised, but all I saw was a stranger wearing an expensive suit and a look of supreme disappointment. My throat felt closed, my chest tight, but something deeper than hurt was building inside me, something that felt almost like resolve. Tyler's phone buzzed, and he glanced at it immediately. "Oh, that's Jessica. We have plans tonight with some friends from work." He stood up abruptly, not even having finished his meal. "Thanks for dinner, Mom. We should do this again sometime." He walked toward the door, leaving me sitting alone at the table with the good china and the melted candle wax and the ruins of my heart scattered across the tablecloth. I heard his car start, heard him drive away, and still I sat there in perfect, terrible silence. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my living room until dawn, staring at the walls Tyler had called outdated, thinking about every sacrifice I had made and every choice that had led to this moment. By sunrise, something fundamental had shifted inside me. Not anger exactly, though that was certainly part of it. Something more like clarity. I had enabled this. For 18 years, I had protected Tyler from every consequence, solved every problem, smoothed every rough patch. When he overspent his allowance in high school, I quietly added money to his account. When he got a speeding ticket in college, I paid it without question. When he needed professional clothes for job interviews, I bought them without asking him to contribute. I had taught him through my actions that his comfort was more important than my sacrifice, that his dreams mattered more than my reality. Monday morning, I called my bank. I need to speak to someone about canceling a credit card, I told the customer service representative. For years, Tyler had been an authorized user on my account, a convenience that started in college and never ended. I discovered he had charged over $3,000 in the past month alone. Restaurants, clothing stores, gas stations. The credit limit was $15,000, and he had used nearly all of it. The card ending in 4782, the representative asked. Yes, I can cancel that immediately. Will you be paying the balance in full? The balance was $1,447, more than I made in a month after taxes. I'll be making payments, I said, my voice steady despite the shock. Next, I called my insurance company. Tyler was still covered under my health insurance plan, something he could have changed through his employer months ago, but hadn't bothered to do. I need to remove a dependent, I told them. When they asked for the reason, I simply said, he's no longer eligible. The most difficult call was to the car dealership. 2 years ago, when Tyler wanted to upgrade from his college Honda to something more professional, I had co-signed for a BMW. The monthly payment was $587, and I had been making it faithfully every month, telling myself it was an investment in his career prospects. I need to understand my options regarding a co-signed auto loan, I told the finance manager. He explained that as long as payments were current, there wasn't much I could do unilaterally. But if I stopped making payments, the car would eventually be repossessed and Tyler's credit would be damaged along with mine. What if the primary borrower wants to refinance in his own name? I asked. He would need to qualify on his own income and credit score. Based on the original application, I'm not sure that would be possible. His debt-to-income ratio was quite high, even with your co-signature. I thanked him and hung up. Then I transferred the $587 I would have used for Tyler's car payment into my savings account instead. By Wednesday, I had also canceled the cell phone plan Tyler was on. He had his own phone through work, but I had been paying for his personal line as a backup. Every small thread that connected his comfortable lifestyle to my financial support, I quietly cut. I wasn't doing this out of spite or revenge. I was doing it because I finally understood that love without boundaries isn't love at all. It's enabling. And I had been enabling Tyler to become exactly the kind of person who could sit in my dining room and tell me my life was worthless. Tyler's world began unraveling on Tuesday afternoon. He was at lunch with a client at one of downtown Denver's most exclusive restaurants when his credit card was declined. "I'm sorry, sir," the server said quietly. "Do you have another form of payment?" Tyler's face burned with embarrassment as he fumbled through his wallet. The client, a potential major account, watched with obvious discomfort as Tyler had to ask Jessica who had joined them for lunch to pay the check. "I'll re-imbini RCE you later," he mumbled, knowing she could hear the shakiness in his voice. "What happened?" Jessica asked when they were alone. "I don't know. Maybe it's a mistake with the bank." But even as he said it, Tyler felt a cold dread settling in his stomach. Wednesday morning brought worse news. Tyler walked out of his apartment building to find a tow truck attaching his BMW to its hoist. "Wait!" he shouted, running toward the truck. "What are you doing?" "Repossession," the driver said matter-of-factly. "You're 3 months behind on payments." "That's impossible. The payments are automatic." But even as Tyler protested, he realized with growing horror that he had never actually set up automatic payments. His mother had been making them manually every month for 2 years. "You'll need to contact your lender," the driver said, securing the car. "Have a good day." Tyler stood on the sidewalk in his expensive suit, watching his BMW disappear around the corner. His colleagues would start arriving at the office soon, and he had no way to get there except public transportation. The bus stop was 3 blocks away, and he would arrive sweaty and flustered and completely unprepared for his morning presentation. When he tried calling his mother, the call went straight to voicemail. He tried texting. No response. By Thursday, panic was setting in. "I don't understand what's happening," Tyler told Jessica that evening. They were eating takeout in his apartment, a far cry from their usual dinner routine at trendy restaurants. "All my cards are being declined. My car is gone. My mom won't return my calls." Jessica had been growing increasingly distant since the restaurant incident. "Tyler, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest. Have you been lying to me about your financial situation?" "What do you mean?" "I mean that in the year we've been together, you've always talked about your salary, your bonuses, your success, but if that's true, why can't you pay for a dinner? Why are your credit cards maxed out? Why didn't you know your car payment wasn't being made?" Tyler felt cornered, exposed. "It's complicated. There was a mix-up with my bank. My mom and I share some accounts, and—" "Your mom?" Jessica's voice rose. "Tyler, you're 25 years old. Why are you sharing bank accounts with your mother?" "It's not like that. She just helps out sometimes. She co-signed for some things when my credit wasn't established yet." "What things?" Tyler gestured around the apartment helplessly. "This place, the lease, the car, some of my cards." As he said it out loud, the truth became impossible to deny. He wasn't living the successful, independent life he had claimed. He was living on his mother's credit. His mother's guarantees, his mother's willingness to subsidize a lifestyle he couldn't actually afford. Friday brought the final blow. Tyler's landlord called to inform him that his lease guarantor had withdrawn her support, and he needed to provide a new guarantor or additional security deposit within 30 days. The amount required was more than Tyler had in savings, more than he could reasonably come up with on his actual salary alone. By Friday evening, Jessica had made her decision. "I think we need to take a break," she said, her suitcase already packed. "This isn't about money, Tyler. It's about honesty. You've been living a lie, and you dragged me into it. I can't trust someone who lies about something so fundamental." Tyler spent the weekend alone in an apartment he could no longer afford, eating ramen noodles because he couldn't afford groceries, taking the bus because he had no car, and slowly coming to terms with the magnitude of his situation. Everything he had built, everything he had bragged about, had been an illusion supported by the very woman he had insulted and dismissed. Sunday night, he swallowed his pride and took the bus to his mother's house. When I saw Tyler standing on my front porch with a backpack over his shoulder and defeat written across his face, I felt a mixture of sadness and vindication that surprised me with its intensity. He looked exhausted, humbled in a way I had never seen before. The expensive suit was wrinkled, his hair uncombed, his confident posture replaced by something that looked almost like shame. I watched him through the window for a long moment before opening the door. He had his key, of course, but apparently he no longer felt entitled to just walk into my home. That small gesture told me more than any words could have. "Hi, Mom," he said when I finally opened the door. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Tyler." I stepped aside to let him in, noting how his eyes took in the familiar surroundings. The same outdated furniture, the same modest decorations, the same small house he had been so embarrassed by just 1 week earlier. But now, instead of disdain, I saw something that looked like longing. "I know you're angry with me," he began, setting his backpack down in the entryway. "I know I said horrible things, I know I hurt you, and I know I don't deserve your help after the way I treated you." I sat down in my favorite armchair, the one with the slightly faded upholstery that I had never bothered to replace. Tyler perched on the edge of the couch, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. "Mom, I lost everything. My car, my apartment, my girlfriend. My credit is destroyed, and I can't afford to live the way I've been living. I don't even know how long I can keep my job if I can't get reliable transportation." He looked up at me with eyes that reminded me of the little boy he used to be, the one who would come running to me when he scraped his knee or had a bad dream. "I didn't take your support away to punish you, Tyler," I said quietly. "I took it away because you needed to understand what your life actually costs. You needed to understand the difference between what you earn and what you spend. You needed to understand the value of the help you've been getting. I understand now, he said quickly. I get it. I was ungrateful and selfish and cruel. I don't know why I said those things about you, about our life. Maybe it was because some of my colleagues make me feel insecure about my background, and I thought if I could distance myself from it somehow. You thought if you could distance yourself from me, I corrected gently. Tyler winced. Yes, and that was wrong. It was so wrong, Mom. You sacrificed everything for me. You worked nights for years so you could be home during the day. You mortgaged your house to help pay for my education. You co-signed for things I couldn't afford and made payments I couldn't make. And instead of being grateful, I was embarrassed by you. Tears were streaming down his face now, and I felt my own eyes growing wet. But I wasn't ready to make this easy for him. Not yet. Tyler, do you understand why I couldn't keep supporting you after what you said? Because I was disrespectful and hurtful? Partly, but more than that because I realized I had failed you as a parent. I had protected you from consequences for so long that you never learned to appreciate what you had. You never learned the difference between wants and needs, between earning something and being entitled to it. I had created a young man who could sit at my table and tell me my life was worthless, and that meant I had failed in my most important job. Tyler absorbed this in silence. Finally, he asked, "What do I do now? How do I fix this?" I had thought about this question all week. You start by living within your means. You find an apartment you can afford on your salary alone. You learn to manage money responsibly. You pay your own bills and make your own way. I don't know if I can afford an apartment on my own, even a small one. Then you find a roommate or you move somewhere less expensive. You make the same kinds of difficult choices that most people your age have to make. What about my job? How do I get to work without a car? Public transportation. A used car you can actually afford. A bicycle. The same ways millions of people get to work every day. Tyler nodded slowly. And what about us? What about our relationship? Have I destroyed it completely? This was the question I had been dreading and hoping for in equal measure. Tyler, I will always love you. You're my son, and nothing will ever change that. But I won't go back to enabling you to live beyond your means or to treat people with disrespect. If you want a relationship with me, it has to be built on mutual respect and honesty. I want that, he said immediately. I want to earn back your respect. I want to prove to you that I can be better than the person who sat at your dinner table last week. Then prove it, not with words but with actions. Show me that you can take responsibility for your life. Show me that you understand the value of hard work and sacrifice. Show me that you can appreciate what you have instead of always wanting more. Tyler wiped his eyes and straightened his shoulders slightly. For the first time since he had arrived, I saw a glimpse of real determination instead of just desperation. Can I stay here tonight? He asked. Just tonight while I figure out my next steps. I considered this carefully. You can stay tonight, but tomorrow you start looking for a place you can afford. And if you stay even one more night after that, you contribute to household expenses. No more free rides, Tyler, not even from me. I understand, he said. And Mom, thank you. Not just for tonight, but for finally caring enough about me to let me fail. I know that probably sounds crazy, but I think this is the most loving thing you've ever done for me. As I watched my son carry his backpack upstairs to his childhood bedroom, I realized he was right. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone's worst impulses. Sometimes love means stepping back and letting people face the consequences of their choices, even when every maternal instinct screams at you to fix their problems. Tyler spent the next several weeks learning to live within his means. He found a modest apartment with 2 roommates, bought a used Toyota with cash he scraped together by selling some of his expensive clothes, and began taking the bus on days when his car wouldn't start. Our relationship slowly began to rebuild, but on a foundation of mutual respect rather than my unconditional giving. I learned something important too. I learned that my worth wasn't determined by how much I could sacrifice for someone else, even my own son. I learned that boundaries aren't walls between people who love each other. They're bridges that make real connection possible. 6 months later, Tyler brought Jessica by for dinner. They had gotten back together after he proved he could live honestly and responsibly. As we sat around the same dining room table where he had torn my heart apart, Tyler raised his glass of water and made a toast. To my mom, he said, who loved me enough to let me grow up. I realized then that my silence that night had indeed spoken volumes. Sometimes the most powerful response to cruelty isn't anger or hurt or argument. Sometimes it's the quiet dignity of refusing to accept unacceptable behavior even from the people we love most. And sometimes, if we're lucky, that silence creates space for the people we love to hear themselves clearly enough to choose to become better. Have you ever had to make the difficult choice between helping someone you love and letting them learn from their mistakes? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you found that sometimes stepping back is actually the most loving thing you can do? Please, hit that like button if this story resonated with you, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about family growth and the complicated nature of unconditional love. Share this with someone who might need to hear that boundaries and love aren't opposites. They're partners. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it helps you navigate your own relationships with wisdom and grace. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give someone is the chance to discover their own strength.